Habits. They're either good or bad. Habits. Habits, it has been said, either hold you up or pull you down, depending on whether they're good or bad. Good habits hold you up. Bad habits pull you down. How honest am I about recognizing bad habits in my life? How readily am I to recognize the difference, to call a good habit good and a bad habit bad? The gospel story recounts the parable of the enemy coming and sowing bad seed among good seed. It's a story that you can reflect upon in terms of habits. The gospel said when the farmer sees what's been done, that weeds have been sown among good wheat, the farmer says, an enemy has done this. When I look at my life and see some of the bad habits that I've allowed to be planted deep in my life, deep in my behavior patterns, deep within my soul, I can say with the master in the parable, an enemy has done this. And sometimes the enemy is me. When it comes to bad habits, sometimes the enemy is me. We are our own worst enemies sometimes when it comes to the bad habits in our lives. We plant the bad seed of bad habits and we do nothing about it. Habits, after all, are hard to change. But bad habits can destroy us. Bad habits can destroy your life. Bad habits can destroy your family. Bad habits can destroy our souls. Bad habits destroy friendships. Bad habits destroy jobs. Bad habits can destroy armies. Bad habits can destroy civilization. And we're talking about serious habits, of course. Doesn't mean somebody who scratches his head all the time, that's a bad habit that we're talking about. We're talking about moral bad habits. Bad habits that are deep within the soul. Bad habits become so familiar that we refuse to part from them. Bad habits are like old friends that we're afraid to see part. But these old friends can destroy you. Like weeds overcoming good seed in the garden of life, so weeds, bad habits, can overcome the good seeds, the good plants within the garden of our souls. The gospel story reminds us that weeds can be left in the garden until harvest, when the weeds are burned, it says. This is a parable that Jesus is using. He's using images. What does he mean? God will not rob you of your bad habits. You have to give them up. He's not going to take them from you. He's not going to take from me my bad habits. I have to give them up. He'll let me hold on to my bad habits as long as I want. He'll never take them from my hands until harvest time. What's harvest time? Judgment Day. Judgment Day is a day when the Lord will look in the garden of our souls to see what bad habits are there, what seeds are there, and what weeds are there, and judge accordingly. It's time, I think, for each of us to look deep within the garden of our hearts. I think we're afraid to do that because we're so afraid to part with some of the habits that have been part of us so long. When you look into your heart, and when I look into my mind, there are 7 key things we can look for. 7 key areas of sin that the church gives us, and actually has given us these 7 capital sins for hundreds and hundreds of years. They're rooted in the Bible. What are these 7 areas of sin? Anger. Anger is a word that covers all kinds of things. Violence with your fist, violence with your words, violence with your attitudes. Anger. Pride. Pride covers a multitude. It's an umbrella for a multitude of sins. Pride, arrogance. I'm the center of the universe. Everybody else bows down before me. I'm number 1. You're number 2 if you're lucky. Anger, pride, envy. Why does he have all the luck? He doesn't deserve that new house. He doesn't deserve that good job. He doesn't deserve all that attention. He doesn't deserve all that praise. I do. I want what he wants. He doesn't deserve it. I do. Envy or jealousy. Lust. Sex-crazed society. Sex has its place. Of course, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for sexuality. But it has its place. It's something sacred. It's not a pastime. It's not a recreational sport. It's not something you possess or that you're master of. It's a gift from God. Lust. Lust is an attitude which says, what I do with my body is my business. It's all about me, myself, and I, the Holy Trinity. Me, myself, and I. Lust. All kinds of sexual sins that are all rooted in self-centeredness. Lust. Greed. Greed, wanting more and more and more and more and never getting enough. Laziness. Laziness in terms of faith. Oh, I'm a good person. Why do I need to pray? I'm a good person. Why do I need to go to Mass on Sunday? Why do I need to change? I'm a good person. Why do I need to go to confession? Laziness spiritually. Gluttony. Doesn't just mean overeating, it means over everything. Excess in everything. Over gambling, over drinking, overeating, over sexing, over everything, everything. Want more and more and more and more, never getting enough. Gluttony. 7 capital sins, bad habits, weeds. They will destroy us. We can oftentimes make excuses about why we continue in our habits. Habits are hard to uproot. You can't just say one day, I'm going to give this habit up and that's all there is to it. You'll fail every time. There's a story told about a man named Pat. Sorry, Pat, is that you? I don't even know if he's Irish or not. Story about a man named Pat. He had the habit of drinking too much. So Pat went to the parish priest one day and he said, Father, he said, I want to take the pledge. Don't want to drink anymore. The priest said, oh, great, Pat. I'm glad you're making the pledge not to drink anymore. Good for you. So Pat left the rectory and he went down and he decided to test himself. So Pat went down to his favorite bar and he walked right by it. He felt so proud of himself. He had walked right by it. Pretty satisfied with himself, he turned around and walked back in front of the same bar again, passed it by. So proud of myself, he said. And he went back and forth a few more times, passing up the bar, every time feeling more and more pride at what he had done. After walking back and forth and never stopping in to have a drink, finally Pat stopped and he said to himself out in front of the bar, he said, Patty, he said to himself, Pat, you have done such a good job of conquering drinking. I'm going to take you in and buy you a drink. Crazy. And yet, we expect bad habits to disappear that quickly, and then when we become satisfied with a little improvement, we regress and go back to the same old habit. It takes more to uproot a habit. It takes power, divine power, and it takes a plan. Demands divine power, God's grace, and a plan. It takes God's grace to overcome a bad habit and to uproot it. It takes a plan of action to avoid the vice or bad habit. If you have a drinking problem, don't go to lunch in a bar and have an open bottle of beer in front of you. If your habit is internet porn, get a filter on your computer, or have someone monitor what you're watching. If pride is the problem, try complimenting someone, praising other people instead of thinking the world revolves around you or me. Whatever the problem, willpower is not enough. Saying it once, I'm going to overcome this problem, is not enough. You'll fail and I'll fail every time. What is needed is divine power and a game plan. Divine power and a game plan. Grace of God, one day at a time, the sacraments, Mass regularly, weekly. Confession. Confession is a great way to overcome habits because we have to come and admit it. In admitting it, we're opening ourselves up to God's grace and asking Him to help us overcome our habits. Confession regularly. A game plan, making plan to uproot the problem. Avoiding situations that find ourselves near to the problem area. Being realistic about our weaknesses and knowing how weak we really are. One of the greatest tactics of the devil is to say, see how much progress you've made, like this guy who had a drinking problem. The devil said, see, you've walked back and forth so many times, you got it made, go in and buy yourself a drink. That's the way the devil operates. It's crazy. But we all do it. One day at a time. Power, His power, and a game plan to avoid situations where we find ourselves finding our weaknesses coming to the surface. One day at a time. Some time ago there was a song, I don't know who wrote it. One day at a time. Who wrote that? One day at a time. Who wrote that? Nobody knows? Who? It was a sitcom? But who wrote the song? I don't know who wrote the song. Anyway, Chris Christopherson sang it. Okay. Anybody has a voice like Chris Christopherson? Would you like to stand? But this hymn really says it in terms of what we're talking about one day at a time with God's grace. Remember the lyrics. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, that's all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the day, show me the way, one day at a time. I love that. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Together. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Lord, help me today to show me the way, one day at a time. Amen.